going to be making a platformer because I thought it would be easy.
That is me, about 4 months ago. It was the first video I'd posted in around half a year, and it was all about this brand new platformer game that I was for sure going to finish, because this time I would do things differently. I wouldn't care if it was bad, I wouldn't make it too big, and most importantly, I wouldn't stress over it. We are now 4 months later, and I can safely say that all of those things absolutely happened, and development of this game went awful. The reason for this is something I should have realised from the very start, and it's that I am a perfectionist, and I have been a perfectionist for basically my entire life. I wasn't just going to be able to turn that off. I tried at first, and it was kind of working, but then the idea of thousands of people watching what I made drove me further and further into my old habits, which was making something that looks cool, but not thinking about the fundamentals of my game. And by the time I realised what was happening, I was gone too far, and my last video is a testament of exactly that. It did awful. It was awful. I was adding something to a game that didn't need it, or whilst just not doing a very good job. It was rushed, stupid, and unnecessary. But finding motivation after that was very hard, because I didn't know what to do with this game. A year ago I would have just quit, but this game began with the idea that I wouldn't. All of this caused a lot of stress, so I decided not to work on or even think about this game for about a month. However, that month is over now, and I think it's time to do what needs to be done, and finish this game. I started by getting rid of basically everything we had so far, which, to be fair, wasn't that much anyway. After a very short grief, over 3 months of work gone, I made this first level, and you might notice that it has a different art style to what I previously had. And even though I did an entire video about it, I decided to get rid of the minimalist style of the game, instead going for an admittedly similar, but more organic style. We are no longer in a sort of void, instead we are in an overgrown cave with vines hanging from the ceiling and red crystals growing on the walls. I actually like this a lot better than what we had before, and especially if we turn on post-processing, I think it looks amazing. Next up, I added turtles, because turtles are incredibly cool. However, these aren't just your regular turtles, these are turtles you can jump on. Although I guess every turtle is technically a turtle you can jump on, though you might be asked to leave the zoo and, never return. On a more serious note, I am very happy with this really unique, completely original addition to our game, and I'm sure no other game has ever even thought of doing this before. But for real, Mario is going to be a huge inspiration for this game moving forward, because in a lot of ways, Super Mario is quite a simple game, and that is exactly what we need right now. So after thinking how genius I am for, copying Mario, I decided to add one of these turtles to our level. Now, the only way to finish it is by jumping on the turtle shell and being shot up in the air. However, touching these turtles anywhere but their shells causes you to die. And to prevent this from happening before you learn that jumping on them gives you a boost, I put the turtle in a ditch, almost making sure the player will jump on its shell and not walk against its head or tail. After that, I made the second level. This one is a bit more difficult and uses a lot more turtles. It is meant to teach the player that these turtles are both dangerous and necessary to finish the levels. The first turtle you encounter is meant to be easy. It is walking very slow, barely even noticeable, and it has a lot of room above it, allowing you to easily jump over it. My prediction though is that someone playing this for the very first time will simply walk into its head, dying immediately. The second time, however, I think they'll either jump on top of it or jump over it, which are both fine. After that, they'll encounter a second turtle. This one is located between two big red crystals, and it is necessary for the player to jump on its shell to get to the top of the ledge, where they'll find the third and last turtle of this level. This one shouldn't be too hard either, and even though it has less space above it than the first, it can be easily jumped on or over. Then we get to a big open space, with tiny red projectiles flying through it. If you make it to the end of this space, you'll find a totem, which is firing these projectiles, and this too is a copy from Super Mario. The last part of this level is meant to be relatively easy, and to show you that these things exist now, and that you can expect them in future levels. And speaking of future levels, here is level 3. In this level we start increasing the difficulty a bit. Everything up to now was quite easy, but this level immediately throws a hard jump at you, requiring a precise double jump, which is tricky to pull off on your first try. But if you manage to do it, you get to 2 turtles, which shouldn't be too tricky if they didn't have spikes above their head, making jumping on them a death sentence. After that though, we get to a turtle that you can jump on and use to get over a rock, and behind that rock is a totem firing at you. However, this time the ceiling is covered with red crystals, forcing you to not jump too high, making it a bit more tricky. And that's the end of level 3. I want to make a total of 5 levels, so we have 2 more to go. But before we do that, I want to take a break from level design to make a menu. I didn't want to make this too complicated though, so I just drew a very simple background and added some simple buttons. One to just play the first level, one to select one of the levels, and one to exit the game. It doesn't look great, but with this done, we are one step closer to a complete game loop. However, there's one very important thing we still need for that. You see, whenever you get to the end of a level, there's nothing there, just empty space. We need to make some sort of flagpole that, by touching it, transports you to the next level. This wasn't too hard to implement. I just made some nice particles using Unity's particle system and added a collider with a script that sends you to the next level. But this means we have a working game loop, and it's time to make the last 2 levels. Level 4 is where we really start to ramp up the difficulty, and I think it might be the best level in the game. It starts out with the player having to jump over 2 big crystals, but what really makes it tricky is that there are crystals on the ceiling as well, forcing you to have really good timing in both where you start the jump and where you end it. After that though, we get to a turtle jumping area, this time with a twist that there are 3 turtles and a totem firing at you. This forces you to have strategic timing and use your double jumps wisely, as otherwise you will get impaled by a spike. But then after you jump over the totem, you get to an incredibly small cave, with on the end of it another totem. However, this totem fires too quickly for you to make it all the way to the end of the cave in one go. So about halfway through, there's a small save area, where you can wait until the projectile has passed and it's safe to continue on to the end of the level, which brings us to level 5. And I'll be honest with you, level 5 is basically just level 4, but a bit more difficult. It too starts with a tricky jump, which can only be passed by doing a full jump and then a small double jump at the last moment, and if you pass that, you'll need to do yet another hard jump, this time through a gap between spikes to get to an elevated platform, to then do the exact same thing all over again, but with a totem firing at you. So not repetitive at all. After that, you'll need to avoid jumping on some turtles, since they have crystals above their head, and once you get past those, we once again get to a very small cave with a totem at the end of it. This time, however, there are spikes on the ceiling, and there is no safe area. The only way to get past this is by finding an area that doesn't have spikes on the ceiling, and jumping at the exact right time, avoiding the projectiles. And if you manage to do that, you'll get to continue to the end of the level, which then brings you back to the menu, starting it all over again. And that's our game. It is most certainly not going to win any awards, but I am actually quite proud of it, which I wasn't expecting at all. If I'm being honest, I started this second try with the intent to make a terrible game, just to have the burden of it gone. But when I actually started working on it, I was enjoying it so much that it actually turned into a decent game, even to the point that I'm willing to release it for you to play. So if you're interested in that, there'll be a link in the description. And if you're wondering what I'm going to do next, the only thing I'll say is that I won't be announcing it until I am 100% certain I won't have a terrible time making it.